Have your scented swabs ever hit the ground? How are you ever going to clean that residual odor?
Hi guys, so somebody asked, can you use hydrogen peroxide to clean up oil that may have contaminated a surface? So if your Q-tips, your swabs have come in contact with a surface, or maybe you had oil on your hands or dropped oil on something in the environment, what do you use to clean it up? I have always used alcohol. I've always known that you're supposed to use alcohol. And so I didn't know the answer to if you could use peroxide. I'd never heard of using peroxide. So I decided to do a little bit of an experiment with my own dogs. I do not recommend doing this with your dogs. You do have potential to confuse them or mess them up a bit. But for science, I was willing to do this for my dogs. And I don't think we're gonna have any permanent long-term damage to them. So I did a search with my dogs with some contaminated containers, some that had been cleaned with alcohol, a 70% alcohol, a 99% alcohol, and with a 3% hydrogen peroxide. That being said, I do not know the concentration of peroxide people have used that I have heard of using peroxide, but 3% is what you'll find typically at a store, like in the first aid department where I would normally buy my isopropyl alcohol. So stay tuned and see what my results are. Can you use peroxide rather than isopropyl alcohol or high-proof alcohol to clean residual odor? Okay, so I have some clove oil here. I have some clean Q-tips. I am going to put a drop of oil on each Q-tip. This is obviously not how a lot of organizations prepare their swabs, and this is not normally how I prepare swabs. I usually don't do the direct application, but for this test, I figured having more oil versus less was actually a benefit to really test this situation. So I'm not going to end up using all of these, but I'm just applying a drop of oil to these Q-tips. So this is clove oil, and I'm going to use this to contaminate some boxes. So there's one drop of oil on each of these Q-tips. So I'm just going to let those hang out for a second. The plan is to do 4 contaminated boxes. I'm just going to rub a Q-tip on the boxes, and then we're going to see what the dogs do. So I am going to very carefully, trying not to get too much oil on my hands to further contaminate the boxes. I'm just going to rub that Q-tip on that box. And I can grab another box, and I'm going to rub the Q-tip, and I can see just a little bit of oil getting on the box for sure when I'm doing this rub. Grab another box, grab another Q-tip. So these are not kind of contaminated. These are very, very contaminated with clove. So lots of residual odor on those. I'm going to let these boxes, with it, like you can kind of see in there, I'm going to let these kind of cook for a bit, and then I'm going to clean 3 of them. So we have this one, which will be cleaned with 70% IPA. This one will not be cleaned. This one will be cleaned with 99% IPA. And this one here will be cleaned with hydrogen peroxide. I have 3% hydrogen peroxide. So I'm going to let these cook, and I'm going to come back, and we're going to do some cleaning. I'm going to take these gloves off. I'm going to put on fresh gloves. Okay, I am back. I've got some clean gloves on. This is my container that got clove oil on it that is not going to be cleaned. So I'm just going to put a lid on this. So this this is essentially our hot box, and I would expect the dogs to hit on this. All right, so we're gonna clean some boxes. This is our clove oil that has been cleaned, or will be about to be cleaned, with peroxide. So do a generous spray of peroxide and wipe that out. And then I'm just gonna do one more kind of misting of the peroxide and let that evaporate before I put the lid on it. All right, this one is our 99% IPA. So that's my 99% IPA. We will wipe that out. Was it finished? Wipe that out and give it a mist to evaporate. All right, and then that makes this our 70% IPA. So it's this picture. And I'm just gonna spray a mist in there and let that evaporate. So now that I have my clean containers, I think I'll actually go ahead and do a quick wipe just along the outside of the containers as well, since I was handling them with my gloves that I had prepped the swabs with. So this is the stuff inside my post it along the here. Just like extra careful. So decided about that race over 99% alcohol. Here's our 70%. So essentially, we are hoping the dogs do not hit on any of these boxes. The process of far more mist than alcohol does. Alright, so I'm gonna let these sit for 5 minutes before I put the lids on. And in the meantime, off camera, I'm just gonna go wipe down 2 clean containers. So I'm gonna wipe down a clean container with alcohol, 99% alcohol. And I'm gonna wipe down a clean container with the 3% hydrogen peroxide, just as controls. So they will be containers that have never had oil on them. And yeah, they'll just be clean with these cleaning things to see, just to make sure that the dogs aren't for some reason paying attention to this stuff, although I can't imagine they would. All right, we will see you soon with a search setup. Okay, so our boxes are all lined up. We've got a control box, followed by a clean box that has been extra cleaned with peroxide, but it's never had oil. We've had a box that was rubbed with oil that's been cleaned with 99% isopropyl alcohol. Then we have another clean control box, no oil, no peroxide, no nothing, just a clean box. Then we have our oil box that has been rubbed with oil and not cleaned in any way, shape, or form. Then we have a clean box, never had oil, that's been rubbed with 99% IPA. Then we have a clean box that had oil rubbed on it, that's been cleaned with peroxide. Then we have another control clean box, not cleaned with anything, not rubbed with oil. And right here at the end, a box that was rubbed with oil, and this one was cleaned with the 70% isopropyl alcohol. So those are our boxes.
Let's see what Brophy thinks about how well we cleaned these boxes.
Finished. Good boy. That a good boy.
Now it's Trinket's turn to let us know what he thinks.
This one? Trinket. Good boy, yes! Good job. Good job, baby. Okay guys, so those were my results with running my two dogs, Brophy and Trinket. Brophy is an experienced dog. We have trialed in all kinds of organizations, have all kinds of titles. He's been at it for, together, we've been at it for 7 years or so. And the little guy, Trinket, he's been on odor for about 6 months at this point, or 9 months at this point, never mind, time flies. He's been on odor, yeah, for about 9 months. At this point, he's titled some lower stuff in some organizations, and we're still just really kind of getting going with him. But he does love his containers, and he does absolutely understand the game. So that was the two comparisons. Even with prompting, Trinket did not show any interest in the isopropyl alcohol cleaned oil container, so one of the contaminated containers that had been cleaned with isopropyl alcohol. Even with prompting, he was not interested in it. Now, he actually did a lot better with prompting than I would have anticipated, because I don't typically prompt him to search. That's a bit strange for him, but I did just really want him to have a good sniff at the boxes and tell me what he thought. And you will see, you would have seen that both of my dogs did show interest in the container that was cleaned with peroxide. There was some questions in my dogs' heads of, this isn't quite right, but this is something. Whereas the alcohol containers that had been contaminated with the oil and cleaned with alcohol, I got no interest from them. And again, Trinket, even with prompting, he was not interested in those boxes. So take what you want from this. It's not super scientific. I am not a scientist. I am just a scent detection trainer. But that is sort of my 2 cents. Should you use hydrogen peroxide to clean residual odor? If you've contaminated, if you've got essential oil odor for your sport detection dog on a surface, should you use hydrogen peroxide? I'm gonna say no. Stick with the isopropyl alcohol, but my results have shown that it doesn't seem to show much of a difference between the 70% and the 99%. I've typically always used the 99%, but the 70% does seem to do just fine. So do with that what you will, and happy sniffing.
Da, 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 da.